some of the American Sociological Association meetings that we attend. So it's my pleasure to welcome and introduce Dr. Ed Munoz. He comes with a very rich history. He's a native corn husker.
Yeah.
But it's real sad after this past weekend that his team won't be going to the Rose Bowl, but
right.
Wisconsin will. He's a graduate from his whole academic career is actually at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, where he got a sociology degree and minor in Spanish for his undergrad, went on and stayed there and got a sociology degree as a master's and a PhD. After graduating, he went on and finally left the state of Nebraska and went to Iowa State and was an assistant professor there at Iowa State from 1996 to 2003, and did the unenviable thing of going to University of Wyoming and accepting the directorship of Chicano Studies as an untenured professor. So he was an assistant professor when he took over Chicano Studies at University of Wyoming. Got his associate professor position there, and he's still a strong member and a very active researcher and scholar. And so we will listen and hope to hear his vision of ethnic studies. Dr. Munoz.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Thank you for the invitation to come out here and share my vision. I don't know if I really want to call it my vision, but before I get into that, this is my third visit to Utah. First time I visited Utah was when I was on the market and I went to Wyoming, but had an interview at Utah State University, and I had my preconceived notions of Utah, and as many people have preconceived notions of other places and whatnot. And so really, was hoping they wouldn't offer me the position kind of thing. And then I got to Logan and met folks and saw the country, and I go, wow. I was hoping they would offer me the position when I left. I didn't get an offer, but it kind of stopped. It helped to break those preconceived notions I had. Then the second time I visited was probably 5 years ago, and this time I came to Salt Lake City and to baptize my niece, my nephew's daughter, and jokes were being made then too, some related to these preconceived notions as well. But I loved Salt Lake City when I visited. I stayed at the Little America, and we did a little bit of the sightseeing downtown and everything. So it was good. It was nice. And so this third visit, I'm looking forward to it more and more. I had more contact with individuals that are doing research and teaching here, and do kind of think that it's a nice place to be for faculty of color, and with the growing population of students of color too, I think it's an exciting place to be, and I'll get into that some more here in the field. Let me see if I can work this. I usually don't have a minute. And this is the outline that I'm kind of going pretty much phrase by phrase as Dr. Smith had provided me with. And I don't know if I wanted, but I started thinking about this and sharing my vision for the Ethnic Studies program. And over the years, as the director of the Chicano Studies program, I've learned that the vision has to be a shared vision with the faculty, not only faculty but students and staff and also community members. And so I don't think today what I'm going to present is not really my vision, but some of the skills and the experience that I've been able to acquire over the past 10 years at the University of Wyoming. Because just by the talks that I've been having with folks at dinner this morning with Lola from Ethnic Studies as well, Dr. Calderon, I think we have some similar issues, and we've found ways to kind of navigate around some of those issues. I think Ethnic Studies is kind of, moving from a program to a department, looking for ways to kind of get around those issues as well. And so I'm going to present you with some of the things we've been doing to kind of show you what we've done there with my colleagues in the Chicano Studies program at the University of Wyoming. And this is, like I mentioned, within the context of the Chicano Studies program, but I think that the skills and the experience that I've had there, we work pretty closely with our colleagues in American Indian Studies, African American Studies, Women's Studies, International Studies, American Studies. We all have our own program, our own directors, and our own faculty, joint faculty. Some have permanent lines, some of them are joint lines and things like that. So I think these skills are transferable to a broader ethnic studies program, or even if I was going to a sociology program. I am a sociologist, as Dr. Smith mentioned, and I'm in a criminal justice department right now. And I'd really like to thank you all for being here today. I know it's not a good time of the year to be here with what's going on, and we have it just as bad as you. We just interviewed our 4th candidate in criminal justice last week, and we are in the process of reviewing candidates, the double joint duties of faculty in these programs. We are reviewing applications for a Chicano Studies English position, and then teaching and everything else. And, okay, so I thank you for being here, okay? Part of the talk of, trying to do some research on the University of Utah and the state of Utah, and about the only thing I really knew about the University of Utah is it's a flagship university here in the state. We have a pretty good football team, better than Wyoming's. And we know that from personal experience, since we were in the same conference for quite some time. And I am a football fan, okay? But the more and more I've looked at the university, and it's been, over the years that I've kind of been looking at the website and things like that. I've known some people here for some time. Leticia, Dr. Alvarez over in Education Culture Society was at Laramie for a couple of years doing a postdoc with Dr. Rios and whatnot. And I know generally from my research that the Inner Rocky Mountain West is a place of substantial growth for racial ethnic minority populations. Okay? So I see this as a pretty nice opportunity for me to kind of continue the work I've been doing. And probably most exciting is being surrounded by a group of scholars, a critical mass of scholars that think the way I do and do the work that I would like to do. I've been at Iowa State, University of Wyoming, even at Nebraska. It's kind of been, I'm the only, Latino doing this type of research and investigating these kinds of problems or whatever. And so it's hard sometimes to kind of keep up some research steady, consistent research collaborations. And I've often had to travel long distances in order to kind of reach my research subjects, so to speak, or whatever, okay? Populations. And I firmly believe that ethnic studies is, the education for the 21st century, the changing demographics of the United States. It's all over the news, particularly with the recent election and whatnot, and even though some people think we're in a better place, there's still a lot of issues that we need to address, and I think the ethnic studies program and other programs, women's studies, are at the forefront of those issues. I always like to look at census data. Probably from my early days my days in graduate school, I started doing some work using census data, looking at populations of Latinos and where they were most assimilated, acculturated, those types of things, looking at socio-demographic factors. And so I thought I just realized that I hadn't even looked at the 2010 census data yet. It's 2012 now, and I hadn't really had a chance to kind of get in there and look and see what's going on. This table is non-Hispanic white alone population and the minority population for the United States, regions, states, and for Puerto Rico 2000 and 2010. And it's kind of documenting the percent change in the minority population during this 10-year period. The top line, of course, is the total population. We see a 28.8% increase in the non-white population from 2000 to 2010. These are one of the things I like to gauge early on to see what I'm getting into, so to speak. Came down to Utah. So wow, 64.8% increase in the minority population from 2000 to 2010. Ranked fourth, behind Nevada at 78.1%, Maine 66%, and New Hampshire at 67.5%. Pretty amazing. But something that I kind of generally had some knowledge of. Nevada I knew for sure. I think I did know that Nevada was the leading area of growth. And also the South. Deep South is another area of incredible growth for the minority population. And also kind of driven by this Latino growth and immigration and whatnot, okay? Kind of looking at other interesting things, and I thought I'd kind of look at this. The percentage of major race groups reporting multiple races. now with this new category of people can identify as multiple races. And I thought this was kind of interesting, and I thought it relates to these issues of identity and how it has impact on social, economic, political experience for people in the United States. And so these kinds of things is another big thing. Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islanders, they even have their own category, right? Okay, in the census, which used to be combined with Asians, okay? 55.9% of that population identified as biracial or more, or 3 or more races. American Indian, Alaska Native, behind that, and as we know, these populations are pretty small, proportion-wise, in terms of the total population, okay? But still, a large number of individuals identifying as more than one race. Percentage distribution of people who reported multiple races. Largest combination. White, black. White, some other race. White, Asian. White, American Indian, Alaska Native. The complexity of these identity issues that are probably become even more complex. Okay. What does it mean for racial ethnic politics later down the road? Okay. And I don't want to get into this too much, but just to kind of show you that, these are some of the issues that are very interesting to me, and race and ethnicity, politics, social experience, and economic experiences as well. What about Utah? Oops, wait a minute. That's up there. Hang on. I don't like it. Now. Oh, you know what? I forgot to see if I was hooked to the internet. Let's see. No. Okay. I forgot that. Because this was a hyperlink to the census data as well. We're seeing some of the similar kinds of trends in the state of Utah, okay, with regards to the racial ethnic minority population, okay? The growth, Latinos are the largest racial ethnic group in the state. I think if I remember right, it's about 60%, 80%, around 80% white, and about 20% racial ethnic minority population in the state, which kind of matched up somewhat with the statistics that I found on the web about the University of Utah. However, it's my understanding, I think, that they're mixed in with international. Does international students kind of mixed in with that? Okay. All right. Well, I have issues with the websites. I don't think your website is as good as University of Wyoming. But in any case, we'll talk about that later. But anyways, the other things I kind of like to look at is where does that growth occur? Okay, so this is a map of the minority population, percentage of the county population. And you can see here, okay, let me get my notes out here to make this a little bit easier. Salt Lake County, okay, 36 to 49.9% of the population, racial ethnic minority, okay. Right there, correct? No, wait a minute.
No.
That's why, that's
Right there.
Okay. Okay, San Juan County, over 50% or more. I was visiting with Dr. Aleman, right? And I was wondering, is that, my assumption was, since it's so close to New Mexico, it's maybe more, but he corrected me. He told me it was probably Native American, and probably Latino as well, okay? But see, you just can't go by what the maps tell you, whatever, you kind of have to have this contextual knowledge, and so that's an interesting kind of development as well. And I have been visiting with some people about distance learning, and how that is kind of a trend that we're seeing more and more here, not just here in Utah, but even in Wyoming. And maybe that's a way to reach students that, for whatever reason, may not want to come to the University of Utah. Okay, so distance learning. So interesting kind of demographic there. This is the percent change in minority population by county, all right? 57.6% or more. Minority population, Cache, Davis, Utah, San Pete, Wasatch, Summit, and over in the southeastern corner, or southwestern corner is Iron and Washington County. So a number of counties, okay, that have a 57.6% or more change in the minority population. A lot of growth. And I think this is this dark blue area, from what I can understand is maybe the Salt Lake Valley or whatever, okay? Probably where the population is concentrated as well here in the state of Utah. I've heard of people beginning to develop retirement homes over here in the Southwest. I don't know, in St. George, right? So I could see that. I know Jackson, Wyoming is a popular destination point for immigrants as service workers. So what's the things that are driving the growth there and those types of things? So this is why I like to look at census data. It provides me more questions to look into and things like that. Hispanic or Latino population, percent of the total population by county. We see Salt Lake and Weber counties with 16.3 to 24.9% of the total population. Counties here. Percent change, 100% or more change in the Latino population. Rich, Morgan, Utah, Wasatch, Haines, Uinta, Wayne, Beaver, Iron, and Washington counties. Tremendous growth. Okay. Once again, would distance learning be effective for some of these counties that are further away from the University of Utah? And now the way distance learning is set up at the University of Wyoming, we even have students for online courses, students that are out of state, that generate lots of tuition dollars for us. And I know we're on student credit hours right here at the University of Utah. We are kind of student credit hours only for summer school, and then distance learning is also kind of based on student credit hours. So funding sources, potential funding sources for distance learning and whatnot. So when I did see this, at first I read that and I go, 1,300 graduates, students of color. Remember, this is the one we were talking about last night. And folks last night didn't believe it either, right? It's correct, right?
That's how many students file for graduation?
File for graduation in May. That's pretty, based on where I've been at before. I go, wow, what a miracle. Que milagro, right? But maybe not. The population base seems to be there. Okay, so maybe not such a miracle. Okay, I didn't take the time to kind of do my statistical analysis and rates and things like that and all that, but that's pretty impressive for me, anyways. And so this is kind of what I've been seeing here in Utah, at the University of Utah as well. And now I want to kind of, with that kind of background, I want to kind of go into a little bit on leadership style, okay, and kind of move into some of my administrative kind of styles, budget planning, things like that. I thought about this, when I first got the email from Dr. Smith about leadership style, and being a director or a chair is a difficult job because you have to allocate resources and dependent on faculty, student needs, a lot of things. And it's interesting. I teach a course, Social Inequality, Crime, Criminal Justice, and the Law. It's a course for the Criminal Justice Department, and it focuses. I come from a critical criminology perspective, and it's called Crime, Criminal Justice, and the Law because those are different. I don't take a look at crime patterns, but I look at white-collar crime patterns, okay, which often get overlooked when we talk about crime, okay, and demonstrate just how big of a problem it is or whatever. And this semester I used a book by Victor Rios, Punished, how Latino and Black youth are disproportionately monitored, okay, and kept in these spaces, segregated spaces and whatnot. And the third book we used took a look at the legal system and how domestic violence was used, the evolution of domestic violence laws within the legal system. The book I selected was a book called Troubled Marriage, Domestic Violence in the Legal System by Whitmore. And first couple chapters developed to this discussion of different feminism, dominance feminism, anti-essentialist feminism. And I came across another interesting category, governance feminism. And it reminded me, and this came out of a book from Janet Halley, Split Decisions, How and Why to Take a Break from Feminism. Okay? And it reminded me of some of the things that I read in graduate school, particularly about Jane Addams and the whole house, and critical pragmatism that they used, and in order to kind of find ways to help disadvantaged, disenfranchised populations. Battered women's advocates forged partnerships with victims' rights advocates, law and order conservatives, and the state. Strange bedfellows for a feminist movement. In order to institutionalize changes to both law and the legal system designed to deploy the legal system on behalf of women subject to abuse. Okay? So in other words, sometimes we have to, kind of place our ideology, on the back burner in order to kind of negotiate compromises, deals, or whatever, in order to kind of, provide the resources that we need for faculty in a timely fashion. It oftentimes puts you at odds with faculty or students. Okay, you're a sellout. Okay, those types of things. But I also realize that over time these relationships can change as well, and so things can work out the way we intended them to work out. But sometimes we kind of have to leave our philosophy behind and things like that, depending on how best we can access resources. Budget planning and management. Okay. Mentioned a little bit about finding out about student credit hours, and that's how we get a large portion of our funding for the ethnic studies program. And I imagine that's for all academic units here on campus, that they don't have an allocated budget from the state or anything or whatever. And
There's some of that too.
okay, all right. Well, we'll talk more about that as well. But over the years, I've been pretty proud of myself and my trustee office associate that makes sure I don't spend money the way I can't spend it, right? Where's is it Janet over here?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That keep those folks happy, because they will keep you out of trouble and be your best friend when everybody's mad at you and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things that I've really realized too, that you have to kind of keep abreast of the national, the local, state, kind of budget developments, because they're oftentimes a precursor of what's going to happen at the university, at a publicly funded university such as the University of Utah. Okay, and I think sometimes folks would be calling me stingy or whatever. Spend the money, there's more money, and I go, oh no, I'm sorry, the dean, there's no money in the dean's office. Whatever you want to think, there's no more money in the dean's office. So oftentimes get criticized at this, but I think I've been pretty good at being able to keep the lights on, faculty, student support. Always try to allocate a fair amount to faculty for research and travel, okay? And make sure we have enough for extracurricular projects that, in my view, help us with some of the academic side, particularly within tenure promotion kinds of processes that I'll describe here in a little bit as well. Okay, those are some of the things that I look at first off. I kind of allocate those monies right off the bat as soon as we start our new academic year. Okay? I then try to identify additional institutional funding. I've been talking about distance learning and how that's going to help. Well, it is already starting to pay dividends for us at the, in the Chicano Studies Program at the University of Wyoming. Okay? There's other kinds of little grants, basic research grants that I'm sure the University of Utah has here. Student government funding. We were able to commission a local artist, Ruby Chacon, to do a mural for the Mecha students at the University of Wyoming. And we ran out of money, the students ran out of money in order to kind of transport the mural back to Laramie. So Chicano Studies came in and helped pick. That's when I came to baptize my niece as well. So it was a dual duty that I did that time around. But still, kind of working with students and their funding, sources as well. These collaborative projects with other departments. And like I said, I mentioned distance learning as well. External grants. I'm sure faculty members know the importance of external grants. Okay, free us up to do some of the research that we want to do. Those types of things. Support student research. Okay, as well. Be glad to work with faculty to try to help get those grants. Development is something that we have never really been at Chicano Studies program, never really been able to fully get going. And I don't know how development kinds of activities are with the ethnic studies program. I don't expect them to be that big since we just became a major. Our problem is we don't have majors. So we can't really talk to rich, wealthy alumni, right? Or not even necessarily rich, but somebody that can give us $100 every year or whatever, because those little $100, $50 gifts or whatever add up. So another funding stream that I have been, trying to develop over at the University of Wyoming, and there's good ideas for that. There's, golf tournaments, cross-country skiing runs, 5Ks, things like that we can do, around homecoming, okay? Things like that, or Semana Primavera kind of opportunities. Support and mentoring of faculty. I feel I've been pretty successful at this since we've had 3 tenure promotion, well, mine doesn't count, I guess, but 2 others, and we've been successful there, okay? Junior commented that people that are successful in this business, faculty that are successful in this business, are those ones that are coachable, okay? Those ones that, for whatever reason, whether it's in teaching or research or at your side as well, they're realizing that we do have different trajectories, mid-career. Talking to some of the students last night, what do you want to even apply as well? A lot of reasons. Family issues, career, mid-career kinds of things, new trajectories. Like I mentioned before, if I was to come here, I think it would be easier for me to do research, and I'll kind of get into some research projects and talk about that a little bit more here in a bit. People have new trajectories, new needs, okay? And this could also mean, we have to find ways to reward people for all the things that they do, okay? Maybe we need to get away from some of the traditional modes of scholarship and not just focus on published peer-reviewed articles and things like that, people that are doing valuable community service, okay? How do we reward that? If people want to do more teaching, this is kind of reconstituting, job descriptions and things like that, post-tenure. Is there a post-tenure review here in place as well? Okay, there's talk in Wyoming where if people want to do more teaching rather than the research, okay, we'll reward you for that. Okay? Different types of scholarship. Our temporary lecturers. I put temporary lectures here. I don't know what kind of lecture system you have, but I think we started talking about it last night, Dr. Smith and I. At the University of Wyoming, we have a professional lecture system that's similar to the tenure and promotion process here. At the University of Wyoming, 6-year contracts for professional lecturers being reviewed every year and whatnot. Chicano Studies hasn't gotten to that point. We usually have used temporary lectures to help us deliver our curriculum on a regular, consistent basis. Temporary lectures don't make much money. And so there's ways that I try to devise in order to kind of, help them develop professionally as well. Whether it's, some support to go to a conference, those types of things, or, just try to be innovative and things like that. We get funding for them through distance learning as well. So oftentimes if we have big enrollments, I'll give them a bigger share of the pie. Okay? And of course, graduate research teaching assistants as well. How do we ensure that they are getting what they need to be competitive on the job market? So we need to kind of remember all that as we support and mentor faculty. Ethnic studies and academic leadership. This is what we're about. In my view, this is how we started. Ethnic studies, women's studies. Okay. The vanguard for social, economic, political justice. Things haven't changed much. In some aspects have changed, but yeah, I think we're still there. And so we need to have voices, okay, at the university and college levels. I know committee work, and that's another way of rewarding people, for their service. We're placing more emphasis on some of the things that individuals are doing at the university and college levels. Faculty Senate. I've been on the Faculty Senate before, and it's not the most enjoyable experience. Okay? However, during my tenure on the Faculty Senate, I was part of the executive committee where the Vice President for Academic Affairs and the Associate Vice President for Academic Affairs had a weekly Monday lunch with them to discuss the agendas and whatnot. Last summer, I had a brief encounter with Associate Vice President, Provost of Academic Affairs, and we got into a discussion about the upcoming allocation of faculty lines, central position management, CPM. Asking me about how excited, are you excited about CPM? I go, excited for CPM? We never get anything. Chicano Studies never gets anything because we always have to depend on another academic unit in order to secure a line, okay? And we're usually second or third in their choice. So we never get anything. So, but I still apply. We had kind of a competition for faculty lines. I still apply every year in the hopes that we get something. Evidently, I complained enough and loudly enough to her, and it was a pretty civil discussion actually at Prexy's pasture, you know, just informally. And so the memo that came down from Academic Affairs a couple weeks later said Academic Affairs will support one ethnic studies position. That's how we have a hire for Chicano Studies in English at this point in time. Okay, and we are the primary unit. There were people lining up, other department heads lining up to work with me. Okay, there's some some other complex issues there, but being there and getting known, college TMP, we need folks there as well. Okay, that can evaluate ethnic studies scholarship. Okay, we had to develop a parallel review for our faculty, and it came about because we, I think it was my first year there. We didn't have the parallel review in place, and when my first review was okay at the departmental level, it got up to the college level, it was okay there too, but there was comments being made that we don't know how to evaluate the Chicano Studies portion of this packet. Visited with the dean on some other matter, he goes, I'm kind of concerned about this, you know, that they don't know how to evaluate it. Well, that's what I've always said, that how come we don't get equal say-so in this 10-year promotion decision and whatnot. So we developed a parallel review process that I think has been helpful in the success we've had with the 10-year promotion process as well. Central college committees, college central committees and that are usually advisory committees to the dean in the distribution of awards, research awards, teaching awards, all these types of things, okay? Student advocacy, we should be at the forefront here as well, advising the growing number of ethnic studies RSOs. Even like science, I think when I was at Iowa State, there was a Hispanic Society for Hispanic Engineers. Okay, I don't know if we have one here, and we do. I think we should be helping those students out there. I've been to a SACNAS conference before, Society for the Advancement of Chicanos and Native Americans in Science. So we can't just think on this traditional way of ethnic studies being education, humanities, social sciences. We got to even go beyond that, okay? Latino Greeks as well, in order to kind of help students with awards, leadership development, research mentoring as well. McNair project that I've been involved with a few students as well as my college. Community leadership as well. Again, stressing, rewards for this as well. Nonprofits, work with nonprofits, government assistance. I know oftentimes I get calls to talk about the growth of the Latino population. We should get rewards for being experts on this subject, okay? Applied research, prevention, intervention programs, a number of different types of things. Cultural celebration, keynotes. We should get more. That takes time to develop, to prepare for a keynote talk. And so we could, find ways to kind of really reward this different types of service as well, okay? Student enrollments and academic leadership. And advising. Some of the trends, well, right now, to me, I think that ethnic studies is so important based on this kind of changing racial ethnic demographics in the United States. It's highly suited for professional service, no matter what kind of professional service it is, whether it's teaching, the health professions, lawyers, even cops. Criminal justice system. That's one of the things I kind of feel out of place in my criminal justice department, and I think there's kind of preconceived notions about a criminal justice department. Okay? And I oftentimes feel kind of out of place because I critique the criminal justice system. And I bring in these issues of race, class, and gender in order to hopefully, produce a little more sensitive, empathetic criminal justice professionals. Okay? So we have to kind of get that out to our students, our potential students, the folks that are in the pipeline, so to speak, whatever. I have to what time? What time do we have?
And about 11.
At about 11? Oh wow, I'm going way too long. I thought I'd be over. Okay, so that's one of the things I think we need to stress, and we have to kind of develop our curriculum around these needs, okay? We have to also take into consideration general education requirements, college core, and also the major requirements. How do we fit in there? And otherwise, realign our curriculum to kind of make sure that our students are getting the kind of education they need to be competitive in the workforce, okay? CAPS, these even come up. Will there be a point in time when we have to discuss CAPS? Student enrollments. I know it, and oftentimes that's tied to the resources as well. How many faculty do you need? The student to faculty ratio, those types of things. Hopefully we won't have to kind of talk about that much, okay? But that's another thing that you have to talk about, okay? Now, just kind of want to mention briefly my research and scholarship, and maybe I should just move on.
So we got 30 minutes after your presentation.
Oh, okay, okay. All right. Just let me know when we get close to the quarter after that. Okay, then we'll, okay, is that okay? Okay. All right. And just briefly, just some of the things that I'm doing. Most recently, I presented at the American Society of Criminology a paper on Mexican immigration and Mexican crime rates, a historical overview. We found some data, a colleague of mine and a graduate school buddy, Mexican crime data. Right now, the research literature is pretty much established that there is no link between immigration and crime, despite what the political pundits are saying, you know, and whatnot. And as a matter of fact, immigrants tend to revitalize communities and strengthen social institutions that help prevent crime. Okay? This is kind of what's been found throughout the United States. Large urban communities, new destinations. There are some differences, some nuances, but that's the general pattern. We took a look at this data to see if the opposite was happening. Immigration from Mexico to the United States to be damaging, or be disrupting families and damaging the social institutions that are there to prevent crime. So in other words, we would see spikes in crime, okay? And because it was historical data, we were taking a look at from 1930 all the way up to 2000. And we saw those spikes occurring with the changes in immigration reform policies. Okay, Bracero program that facilitated the flow of Mexicans out of the country. And we're seeing the worst spikes post-1980, when it's been harder to go back to Mexico to help kind of keep that stability in communities. And so we see the spikes in crime, okay? So in other words, kind of reinforcing what's been found here in the United States, that immigration, or this movement of revitalization of communities through immigration, the opposite is happening in Mexico, okay? And that's just kind of a brief summary of that. Oops, I'm sorry. Latino perception on immigration reform. With the McNair scholar, we were able to conduct focus groups, and we did 8 focus groups with individuals and paying attention to class, generational status, gender, nationality. We did a couple focus groups in Mexico and one in Puerto Rico. And we're getting some interesting differences in terms of how people, other perceptions and attitudes towards immigration reform. And much like we think there might be this kind of unified perception of how Latinos and Latinas feel about immigration reform, but from our research, it's showing that there's a pretty much diverse kind of perception. You know, individuals that are in favor of toughening border security, individuals that think that immigrants should learn how to speak English, Latino. Okay? I've had arguments with my dad about these kinds of things. Generational status, there he came from the Mexican-American experience. Okay, assimilation and those types of things. Okay? The social construction of Latinidad in the inner Rocky Mountain West, 16th to 21st century. This is kind of a book project that I've been working on, and I think the one that Dr. Solorzano might be a big help to me, or I a big help to him, but kind of tracing the beginning of Latinidad in this inner Rocky Mountain region. Okay? And I have kind of have been looking to the 16th century, Spanish conquistadors. Okay, what was the one? Coronado was one of the first ones that came up into this region, Santa Fe. Okay, and out onto the Great Plains. I'm a Nebraskan, so the Great Plains, and so this is a big, huge interest to me. But even kind of taking a look at all the way up to the 21st century, how things are changing even in Jackson. Jackson is a lot more diverse immigrant community, a Latino immigrant community. Not just Mexican origin, but we're seeing a lot more Central American and a lot more South American. Okay, so this construction of Latinidad, and also including the Oregon Trail, you know, how sheep herders were bringing sheep from New Mexico with Kit Carson up to Fort Laramie, those types of things. So this construction of Mexicanidad as well as Latinidad and those types of things. So that's a project that's more of a long-term project. And then finally, this new stream of research that I've been developing is in scholarship of teaching. And probably some of you are a lot more familiar with this, being quite a few of the faculty members are education faculty. But I wanted to kind of give you kind of a brief overview, present to you a paper that we had published in Teaching Sociology. My colleagues from Dr. Angela Hyman and Deborah McGriff and Adrian Molina, who is a rap artist in Denver now and works with the community and whatnot. But before I go on here, just kind of, and this gets a paper that we got published on the assessment of student learning. That's something I could be wrong, maybe I'm just not looking in the right place, but I couldn't find much on the assessment of student learning here at the University of Utah. Okay? Every academic unit at the University of Wyoming has to have on their website their learning outcomes, student learning outcomes, every department. Whether it's College of Arts and Sciences, engineering, element. And we had to develop a process on how to assess student learning. So, that being said, just kind of a brief outline, I'll move through that. One of the first things assessment, one of the things that we always hear from our colleagues is assessment. We assess students' work all the time through grading and this and that, but this is a whole different thing. It's kind of the ongoing process of establishing clear, measurable, expected outcomes of student learning. What do we want our students to know? Okay, when they graduate from our program. Okay, we just want them to have memorization of key facts and figures or whatever that pertain to ethnic studies, or do we want them to be critical thinkers? Do we want them to be engaged citizens? Okay, ensuring that students have sufficient opportunities to achieve those outcomes, systematically gathering, analyzing, and interpreting this evidence, and using information to understand and improve student learning. This was a conference that we hosted at the University of Wyoming, National Association for Chicano and Chicano Studies. It's a Rocky Mountain Focal Conference. I believe Utah is part of the Rocky Mountain Focal. Wyoming is as well. When I was first put in charge, and one of the first things I had to do as a director, 10 years ago now, come to think of it, okay, was develop Academic Plan 2. And within Academic Plan 2 was the mandate to have a assessment of student learning process in place by the end of the 5-year plan. Okay? I was on the central, I don't even know what it's called anymore, because we had changed the leadership structure. But I think it was the Central Committee of Knox, and I was representing the Rocky Mountain Focal. And they were beginning the same discussions, okay? Accountability. More and more schools were asking for accountability, okay? Which is important in the distribution of resources. Why do we need to assess student learning, okay? Also uses to demonstrate the effectiveness of current teaching and learning efforts, which is nice because you have another kind of mechanism to kind of put forth for promotion and tenure. If your faculty are doing what they're supposed to do, it's another indicator, okay? We have student evaluations, we have peer reviews, those types of things. Now we have assessment of student learning outcomes that we can put forth in tenure promotion package as well to prove teaching excellence, okay? Improve our teaching and learning. If we're having some issues in teaching, maybe we can look at this and see what can be done. Ensure students are learning what you really want them to learn, okay? I remember we did this within the concept of Chicano Studies, a small program, not very old. It was established in 1998, 1999, okay? there was a debate on whether to name it Chicano versus Latino versus Hispanic versus Nuevo Mexicano versus, you know, those issues of identity and whatnot. Faculty resources, a director, and right now we only have 2 joint hires. Okay, so we only have a minor program. So all of this process was developed just to assess student learning outcomes for our minor. Okay, it's been helpful in tenure promotion decisions, like I said as well, in terms of demonstrating that our faculty are doing what they need to be doing in the classroom. This discussion started, you don't have to start from scratch, we can go to different professional associations to see what's being done there in order to kind of compare and contrast, you know, what are student learning outcomes for African American studies? I don't know what the major organization is. We started this discussion at the national conference in Knox. I can't remember where this conference was at. Okay, Dr. Maria Herrera Solbeck, my buddy Jerry, Dr. Garcia, okay, myself. It was an interesting discussion. Nobody knew where to start. Okay, even all the major Chicano Latino studies, none of them. They had goals and a mission, but nobody had student learning outcomes, measurable student learning outcomes. We decided we were able to secure some grants. Our institution, the University of Wyoming, has been very supportive of the assessment of student learning and have provided grants so that we could do some off-campus retreats, bring in experts, okay, in the field to kind of help you develop student learning outcomes. Okay, this is from one of our retreats. One of the biggest things is that we felt we needed to kind of, well, let me back up just a second here too. One of the first things that we had to do though is we had to kind of do a program assessment. In other words, how does the faculty and resource we have, how does it align with the mission and goals of our program? Okay? So we had to kind of even do this program assessment before we could do the student learning assessment. Okay? We kind of realized that our goals would kind of have to align with the university and the College of Arts and Sciences as well. And we felt confident that we could develop this set of activist goals that would align with goals that we identified in university documents. University Academic Plan 3, College of Arts and Sciences Academic Plan 3. We also, and where we saw that we could fit in were areas of distinction, enhancing areas of distinction, and ameliorating institutional challenges. For areas of distinction, we felt that we could contribute, or enhancing these areas of distinction, should have got some water. Cultural endeavors, the arts and humanities. We had faculty that were doing research in the arts, theater and dance. History and culture of the region. I'm kind of doing this socio-historical kind of stuff. I developed or redesigned a traveling exhibit for the State Historical Museum. You know, we were able to kind of fit in here. Professions and issues critical to the region. The racial ethnic population in Wyoming is similar to what's going on here, increasing. So we felt that we could add to the education of teachers and service professions as well. Okay, I'm going to try to move a little bit quicker. Okay, institutional issues, the learning environment. We developed freshman interest groups, which is, I think, similar to what the diversity scholars is. I think the only difference we might have, or it might be 2 differences. It's a freshman learning community, first-year learning community. Okay, students, and this is this freshman interest group that we developed is cross-listed with African American studies, American Indian studies, women's studies, American studies, and if I forgot someone, forgive me, okay? But this involves, we have the residence halls helping out with this one as well, where students live together in the residence hall, and then they take 3 courses together. One of them being the social justice in the 21st century, that they all take together. And the other class that they take together is English 1010, okay? And then the 3rd class that they take, well, they don't have to take this 3rd class together, but it's a selection of either Intro to Chicano Studies, Intro to American Indian Studies, Intro to Women's Studies, etc., okay? and so we use it kind of as a recruitment tool for our minors and majors as well. We haven't been able to see the data to see if it increased retention. Okay, it hasn't helped us out as much in recruitment as we had expected to. However, we're still kind of working with it as well. So that's one way we felt that we could contribute to ameliorating institutional issues. Diversity, international, and access. We developed study abroad courses. I take students to Merida, the Yucatan, San Juan. Also developed a class called Transnationalism and Crime that I take students to El Paso. And we kind of examine issues there, these experiential components. University Studies program, where we connected all of our courses to the diversity requirement, the university studies, the general education, I think we have here as well. Outreach, extension, and community service. Developed the service, the freshman interest group, the social justice in the 21st century class. One of the major components of it is service money. And each director kind of takes a turn to teach the course from fall semester to fall semester. I've been working with COCA, the Spanish language radio station there in Laramie, to help with an on-air fundraising drive. Okay, we do critical reflections. I'm still developing the course as we go along as well. Okay, we developed a mission statement. Okay, and I'm going to just go back past this so we can get to kind of the assessment of student learning. But this mission statement kind of aligned up with our goals as well. Okay, those goals, when you take them into, when you read this mission statement, you can see this activism, okay? Providing, and even with our goals, providing information, updated, current, scholarly research to organizations in the state, okay, to kind of help debunk stereotypes, whatever, okay? Helping students develop a robust Chicana identity, okay? Activism. Doesn't necessarily mean always pounding the curriculum as well, even though it's a minor curriculum. We came up with a requirement of 3 hours of Chicano studies, introduction to Chicano studies. We had 3 courses that we could confidently deliver on a regular basis.